good. Now, I think
The first two episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man were kind of middling to me. There was a clear potential to them, but there was also signs of tired tropes and possible fatal flaws for the show, so I was a little mixed on how I felt about them. I felt like this could be a good show, but it could also turn out to be a bad one. I felt like how the show overall went really depended on the rest of the show. It wasn't good enough to necessarily blow me out the water and guarantee a good show, but it was good enough that I decided I wanted to keep going and find out. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man has now dropped a new set of episodes. 3 episodes this time around. We're now halfway through the first season, and I think we can now kind of tell how this show is going to turn out. And, well, how does it go? Well, let's take a little bit of a closer look into it. I think the show is funny. It has a lot of moments where it's like, gets a little chuckle out of me. Like there's a scene where Osborn tries to help Peter by giving him new suits. So we go through a montage of just trying out different suits, and they all go wrong.
Are those things supposed to help get me down? Hey, ow! Hey, stop! I am not a piñata.
And it is kind of funny. It's generally got a laugh out of me a couple of times. There's the Oscorp cast, who have this scene where one of them, Amadeus Cho, goes and has a presentation for the class.
Feel free to take a few notes on your way out, Pete. Lights!
Oscorp engineering will never be the same after this. Prepare to witness the future!
I find it endearing. I do think that's funny. I do think the show has genuinely good jokes. Although, I do think Spider-Man's quips are really weak. It's really odd. I think this show is genuinely funny. It has the Spider-Man humor. It's just Spider-Man himself isn't the funny part. There are funny circumstances he's in. There's some good slapstick, but Peter himself is not making the one-liners that are funny, you know? It's really odd, and this could be part of his arc. Maybe he does become funnier and more as he becomes more confident, more mature. There's an overarching plot for the entire season, but then they are also very episodic. Each episode now seems to have its own kind of a villain, but it also is setting up larger plots. So, for example, now Peter Parker is working with Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn finds out who Peter Parker is. He wants to help the city of New York. And because Spider-Man saved Harry Osborn in episode 1 or something, he believes Spider-Man is good for the city, so he's trying to give Oscorp's resources to Spider-Man. And he did go out his way to find out who Spider-Man is. And that's very interesting. You kind of see a little bit of that calculated Osborn in there. He is smart enough to do Spider-Man's identity and track him down. But it is also this kind of thing where he almost comes across sincere. This Osborn, we don't know, we don't have the Goblin stuff yet. In fact, he has done nothing particularly villainous yet, but we kind of get an idea that it's okay, how far does this insanity go? So he actually might have an interest in helping New York this time around, which I find interesting. I prefer Psychopath Osborn. I don't know why. I just prefer Norman being fully unhinged as a complete another monster. The worst person to ever exist. I don't know why. I'm just really like that version. But this seems to be actually possibly more reasonable. But then again, this could be also one of those takes where it's revealed that he is genuinely just as bad as we are used to him being. He's just hides underlying lies going on. He puts a GPS tracker into Spider-Man's suit and he claims it's for a good reason, but most likely it's just to keep tabs on Spider-Man and to spy on him. I do wonder that in the previous episode you had the Pyromaniac attack a random building. Maybe that guy was working with Osborn. The Pyromaniac, actually, fun fact, that Pyromaniac was called Butane or something. He could be either based in a Marvel villain of the same name. I don't know. Apparently this guy appeared in Excalibur. He could also be based on, or at least seems to take inspiration from the Scorcher from Untold Tales of Spider-Man issue 14, which, the fun fact is that I actually did read that issue. I forgot about it, but it is included in Steve Ditko's artist page on Marvel.com and I believe Marvel Unlimited, because apparently there's Steve Ditko art in there somewhere. He gets credited. So I checked it out for the Steve Ditko video and there is no Steve Ditko art in there. So I don't know what's going on with that. Probably a backup that's just no longer around in Marvel Unlimited, but I don't know. I was aware of it. I just forgot about it. I'm just wondering if that guy was sent by Norman. Maybe Norman tried to draw Spider-Man out and maybe he has a larger plans going on. We remain to be seen, but I do like this Norman Osborn because I can't quite tell. I kind of want to trust him, but at the same time, I have comic book knowledge, but I don't quite know where we land with him. And a lot of this remains to be seen how it actually plays out. But so far, I am really liking this take. Harry in this take, he's less cowardly than he used to be. He's sheltered, he's grown up rich, homeschooled, and all of this. So he doesn't talk to people a lot. He doesn't really, he kind of seems to be isolated from everybody. So I think there's a slight hint of that awkwardness. This Harry is also kind of a media star. He's like popular on social media. Everyone's following him. So that kind of makes sense why he would be more well to put together. He's essentially a modern rich kid, a modern celebrity rich kid. So you've seen these kinds of people growing up. A lot of celebrities are like this. So him being a little less ugly than he was in Disco days actually makes sense. And I think that works out fine. And if they could dig deeper into his character, I think this can be a completely fine take on the Harry Osborn character. In fact, Harry does find out also Peter Parker is Spider-Man because this Peter Parker is an idiot. Their chemistry, I think, is really well. Like, they do come across like they would genuinely become friends because they have nice, fun banter, and I really like them together. And again, I can see why Harry wants to have a friend. He kind of tries to play cool, but, you know, it's like, you know, like there's somebody he can connect with, and they have a really cool secret together. So, and because Peter is, you know, like, to a degree, well, this version is very humble, so he doesn't care about Harry's money and doesn't seem to almost notice it. So Harry is extra interested in this Peter Parker. And I don't know, I feel I'm buying the friendship as it's building here. I like these Osborns. I think they're a great success, and I'm very interested in seeing how they ultimately play out. In general, I feel like this is a very strong cast. Like, Pearl is, you know, likable. Like, she's there. She's not that important to Peter's journey, but she gets the job done, and she's likable. Her relationship with Lonnie is relatable, really something you'd really buy. It feels authentic, and I think Lonnie is the highlight. Like, he's, I dare say, the best part of the show. Lonnie gets in this plot line where his brother gets into a gang, so Lonnie goes to drag his brother out of the gang, which is really cool. He just goes in and tells these gangsters to leave his brother alone. Of course, they will not. So Lonnie says, like, hey, let my brother go and I will join up with you. And this is his younger brother, so little kid. So gang leader is like, of course, like, let the kid go. Like, I would rather take the star athlete. That's more valuable. So this is how Lonnie joins the gang. And we get a lot of scenes of him just talking to these gang members, getting little initiations, and being now suddenly not finding time to be at school. When he goes to practice for his football career, suddenly there's a gang fight and he has to go and join them up. So you get a lot of tension there. It's like, originally I did not like the other Tombstone of being a kid, but this is really winning me over. They're using it to this new design to really go into new places, so you get to see how Lonnie becomes Tombstone over time. It's a very slow build up. He only is recently now playing around with being a bad guy or doing something more questionable, but he hasn't actually crossed any lines he can't walk back yet. But we're seeing him fall down that rabbit hole. I buy every step of the way. I really enjoy every step of the way, and it's, you know, it's great stuff. It's paralleling Peter's journey, as Peter is also falling into, I guess, the wrong crowds with Osborn and, you know, doing this supervillain stuff. Lonnie's doing that with his gang that he's joining, and do it at the same time. They're both falling down these rabbit holes and becoming who they're meant to be together. There's a kind of a parallel storyline of them taking the same steps at the same time, but in different groups. If this really stays this good and they don't mess it up, which they still could, but if they don't, I think this might turn out to be a fan favorite take on the character. I could see this absolutely turning out to be something that might outlast the show if it all falls into place correctly. One of the things that helps it is that this show is rated higher in age rating than your usual Spider-Man cartoons, so people have rougher language instead of saying but, they say ass. You know, and the gangster, specifically this criminal world, speaks in rougher language, which makes them feel a little bit more dangerous. There's a hint of blood, like Lonnie gets stabbed in the arm. You see blood, like genuinely blood, like that's just straight up blood, like, and it's really effective. It just adds a little bit extra to the show that allows it to go a little higher, feel a little more dangerous, and makes it all feel a little more authentic, which makes it hit so much harder. They have Nico here, and I'm still unconvinced by Nico. Like, she's kind of there, and it's nothing wrong with her, but, like, why Nico? Like, it's like Nico, you know, like, I'm not gonna spoil the comics, but she's in the comics, and there's storylines to her. I would like to see those storylines, you know, justify why you chose Nico specifically. Why Nico and not, you know, Jessica Jones or something. I don't want it to just be a swap for the sake of it. I want the swap to add to a story. And there's still a lot of potential. This is clearly a slow burn, taking its time. They've apparently been greenlit for 2 more seasons, so there's still plenty of time to make Nico count, and I'm very interested in seeing just potentially, like, well, I guess I'm spoiling it anyway, but Nico in the comics is kind of a witch. Like, she has superpowers. And, you know, like, this show begins with Doctor Strange and portals and either alternate dimensions or just fantasy stuff. I don't think they ever confirmed this is multiverse related stuff, so it is allegedly multiverse stuff, but it might also not be. And I could see maybe they are going to go towards maybe Straczynski inspired run. You know, you have Strange here, he's connected to Spider-Man. You have a really out of place spider, you know, which, you know, maybe somebody or something greater put it there. You could tie those Straczynski ideas into this show, and Nico, a witch, would be a pretty good fit if that's where they're gonna go. Again, my point is not that Nico is great, she's fine, but I still want them to actually use Nico, you know, for more than just like, she's just Gwen, but not Gwen. You know, I want Nico, and there's still 2 more seasons worth of time to actually use that, so we'll see where it goes. One thing I do gotta get out of the way is also the villains. I really am enjoying the villains. Like, we haven't had like a lot of big villains. Like Butane was there, and he's whatever. He appears for like 2 minutes and then is gone. You have Speed Demon, which is a very surprising choice. I forgot that guy was in this show. Speed Demon is in the show, and he was a highlight during the O'Neill years of Amazing Spider-Man, and it's really cool to see him appear, even though I'm not really fully connecting with this design. Like, this design kind of sucked, I'll be honest. I just don't feel it, but I don't feel like I haven't seen a lot in like adaptations. You know, kind of makes up for it. There's Rhino and Scorpion and Doc Ock who appear, and they're being built up over multiple episodes, so they're not yet who they are supposed to be, but I do like that kind of stuff. You know, just, you don't need to immediately show them as who they are, although how good they end up being is still remains to be seen. But now that we're in the groove of things, I'm digging these designs for most part, and the action scenes I think are really good. And there is one thing I have to get off my chest, and nobody else is gonna bring it up, but man, I will. This might be the first good Scorpion we've had in a very long time. If you understand what I'm talking about, keep an eye on the show. This one might be it. This might be more Ditko Scorpion than modern Scorpion, and if it is, all sins are forgiven. My god, I thank the showrunners for giving us a good Scorpion for an exchange. Potentially. We don't know yet, but it's looking good. Scorpion fans, like, usually Scorpion is treated like trash. Now we might actually get an intimidating one, and I'm excited. That is genuinely like the thing I'm most excited for. I love Lonnie, but Scorpion, man, like a good Scorpion. He even seems to, he looks like he's going to get the Ditko design based on the intro. They could tease him a little bit. At least I assume this is Scorpion, could be Lonnie, I guess, but I'm really excited. I really have high hopes for the Scorpion. Peter's working on, in an internship at Oscorp, and you get an original cast there, which is includes Amadeus Cho, and honestly I don't remember the other 2, but you get this little cast. They don't really seem to matter for the overall show. They might one day, I don't know. If Amadeus Cho, for example, is the Hulk in comics, he could turn out to be a Hulk here too. We don't know, in which case he becomes super relevant. But it seems that they're not interested in building that cast up a whole lot, so I would really doubt it. Maybe it's intentional. Now that we are halfway through the show, I'm just gonna come out and say, I still don't like this Peter Parker. I'm sorry, but I just don't like that I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, good boy act. It's not charming to me, it's annoying, and I hate it. He's too good as a character, and that makes him so much more or less relatable, and ultimately, without any edge, without any of the flaws, this Peter is just boring. He's a bit better than he was in episode 1 and 2, but he's still a boring person to watch. It's just too perfect, too nice. There's just nothing to him. He's just bland. And the worst part is, I don't think this Peter is a fresh take. I know some people say that they feel like this is something different, but it doesn't feel like, at least when it comes to Peter Parker, because this is based on Holland's takes, which is what, 7 years old by this point, add on top of the 2017 cartoon, and we get a take that's just stale by this point, and arguably, this take, I don't think was ever that interesting in the first place. It was just excusable because there were already a couple of movies, but by now, that excuse doesn't fly. This is boring, and I don't like it. I would much rather see anything else than this. I will defend it a little bit, as this is, of course, a coming-of-age story, so Peter starts out as very carefree, and there are elements added to it to make Peter Parker a little better as he finds out, or always knew, but we kind of get shots of Aunt May's past due bills. So it seems that he is growing into being more responsible and aware of things going on. So Maybe the lack of these elements is just a representation of how ignorant he truly is. And as it goes on, he starts to get all the bills and all the problems you would expect from Spider-Man as they are compounding now. And these elements are part of Lonnie's arc as well. So again, there's an interesting parallels there, and I do enjoy seeing those come into play. So as it goes on, we might see more standard Spider-Man, although again, I don't think it's gonna be enough to save this Peter Parker, but you know, it's something. It is not as bad as it came across originally. At this point, I am really enjoying the show. It is getting really good, and I would recommend checking it out. If you're interested in it, it really is genuinely a good take on Spider-Man. There are still little things that I don't think it makes up for it, and there is still room to grow, but I really think this one is doing really well so far. If you have watched it, let me know what you think about it. If you are not watching it, let me know still what you think about it. How does it sound and look like? I'm interested in knowing. That's all I have for this time. Thanks for listening all the way through, and I'll see you next time.